Hello everyone. The first thing I want to address is that you may be under a misapprehension. You probably thought this seemed like a fun, maybe even silly video. I assure you, it is not. I will be ranking these crustaceans with the utmost level of seriousness, both from the standpoint of competitive viability and the taxonomic standards of what a crustacean truly is. Before we get into the ranking, let me explain the standards. First of all, we are only ranking Pokemon based on crustaceans. For our purposes, note that this includes crabs, lobsters, and shrimp. Secondly, the ranking will be based strictly on performance in the Generation 9 National Dex Overused format. In this format, every Pokemon that has ever existed is available, and Mega Evolutions and Z-moves are allowed, but Terra and Dynamax are banned. I've chosen this format over the more typical choice for competitive singles, Scarlet and Violet Overused, because half of the Pokemon on this list aren't in Scarlet and Violet, and I know you guys want more crustaceans, not fewer crustaceans. Third, only fully evolved Pokemon will be ranked. There's not much point in ranking Pokemon like Krabby and Crabrawler, as they are absolutely competitively terrible and basically can't do anything, at least not in the National Dex Overused format. There are 10 Pokemon that meet the criteria outlined above. Let's get right into it, going from worst to best. The competitively worst crustacean is Kingler. There is absolutely no reason to use this Pokemon. It's essentially Crawdaunt without anything that makes Crawdaunt worth using. It's a mono water type, so already not a great start for an offensive Pokemon. Its stats are also absolutely terrible. It has an impressive base 130 attack, but that's where the good news ends. It technically has a good base 115 defense, but that means nothing when it has a terrible base 55 HP. Base 50 special defense ensures that a light breeze will kill it, and it has a base 75 speed. Absolutely abysmal for a Pokemon this frail. The bad news continues with its move pool. Kingler gets Swords Dance for setup, but no Aqua Jet or priority of any kind, so you'll have to use Agility if you want to have any chance of breaking or sweeping. Now, you may ask, Pinkacross, how do you expect a Pokemon this frail to set up Agility and Swords Dance? And to that I say, good question. That's why Kingler is the worst on this ranking. Now, continuing with the horrendous move pool, Kingler gets the typical water moves you'd expect, Crabhammer and Liquidation. For coverage, it has Knockoff, which is nice, but other than that, it gets the crappy version of several types coverage. It gets Superpower, but not Close Combat. It gets High Horsepower, but not Earthquake. It has Sheer Force, which is nice for boosting the power of Liquidation and bypassing Life Orb damage, but it's not nearly enough to save Kingler from being awful. I ended up using a double dance set. Agility, Swords Dance, Liquidation, and Superpower, so I had some way to hit Ferrothorn. As you guess, it was awful. Just an extremely frail, slow, inconsistent setup sweeper that's super easy to kill while it sets up, and even easier to finish off with priority. Despite how bad Kingler is, I had a tough time deciding on the bottom spot. I actually almost gave it to our next worst, Parasect. Now, let's first address the point of whether Parasect is truly a crustacean or not. Some sources claim that Parasect is an insect that has been taken over by a mind virus mushroom, and this does make sense with it having sect in the name. However, it does strongly resemble a hermit crab. There is some debate on what it's truly based on. It could be based on both. I decided to give Parasect the benefit of the doubt and include it in this ranking, assuming it is at least partially inspired by a hermit crab. Now on to the competitive aspect. Parasect is a bug and grass type, a devastatingly bad combo for a defensive Pokemon, and I use the word defensive very loosely here. Parasect has base 60 HP and base 80 in both defenses, making it rather frail by almost any standard. But its best stat is only 95 base attack, and when you factor in its complete lack of coverage and the offensively ineffective grass-bug combo, there's no way to effectively use Parasect offensively. So, despite its horrible bulk and poor defensive typing, it is primarily used as a wall. Now, I will give Parasect some credit here. It does have some solid moves for a defensive Pokemon. It gets the coveted move Spore, the 100% accurate sleep move. It also gets Leech Seed, Knockoff, Aromatherapy, and Stun Spore. Not a bad set of moves, and it also gets Recovery with Synthesis. But these moves aren't nearly enough to overcome the other issues I discussed. It does have a very solid ability of Dry Skin, so it can be used on rain teams as a hard counter to Ogerpon Wellspring, but there are much better choices even for this role. There is absolutely no reason to use Parasect. Everything it does can be done far better by many other Pokemon. But in some matchups, it can be annoying for your opponent to deal with, and Spore alone is very difficult for some teams to handle. The fact that it gets moves like Leech Seed and Spore is what gives it the edge over Kingler. I used a Rocky Helmet set on a rain team with Protect, Knockoff, Leech Seed, and Spore. It was bad for sure, but it sometimes did something. Now, moving on, this is where our list takes a pretty huge leap forward. We're not nearly yet at the point where these crustaceans are worth using, but the next Pokemon on our list is miles better than Kingler or Parasect. It's Armaldo. First, let's address if Armaldo is truly a crustacean or not. The animal it's likely based on is the Anomalocaris, an extinct shrimp-like creature. Although it is an arthropod, it is not considered a crustacean. However, given its resemblance and relation to modern shrimp, which are crustaceans, I decided to once again give Armaldo the benefit of the doubt and include it. Now, for the competitive side of things, Armaldo's a bug and rock typing doesn't set it up for success offensively or defensively, but it has much better stats than Kingler or Parasect. Its base 125 attack can pack a punch, it has decent bulk with 75 base HP, 100 base defense, and 80 base special defense. The real problem is its base 45 speed. It does get Swift Swim, so if you place it on a rain team that can help with the horrible speed stat, but even with max speed EV investment, a positive nature, and rain up, you're barely outspeeding Zamazenta. Any faster Pokemon, or basically any Choice Scarfer, will be able to outspeed. Its move pool is pretty solid though, and at first glance it would almost seem to make Armaldo worth using. The biggest thing that it gets is Rapid Spin, a very high value move. Not only does it remove hazards, it also boosts Armaldo's terrible speed. Even with base 45 speed, if rain is up and you have a Rapid Spin boost, you're outspeeding almost everything. It gets Stone Edge as a stab, of course, and also has solid physical coverage, like Earthquake, Knockoff, Liquidation, and Aqua Jet for priority. It also gets Swords Dance, so it can boost up its already very solid attack. The problem is that, without rain, Armaldo is just too slow to do anything effectively. Getting outsped by every ghost type that you might try to remove hazards on makes it an awful Rapid Spin user. And Swords Dance is rarely effective on a Pokemon so slow unless it has strong priority, and a non-stab Aqua Jet isn't cutting it. And if you do put Armaldo on Rain, it's badly outclassed. There are about 100 better Rain abusers you could have on your team. I tried a set with Swords Dance, Knockoff, Rapid Spin, and Liquidation, and it worked okay. The hazard removal was nice, but it wasn't amazing by any means. And if you want a Rapid Spin Pokemon that fits on Rain, Kabutops and Quaquaval are much better options. Armaldo isn't completely awful like Kingler or Parasect, but there's still no good reason to use it. Our next Pokemon is similarly difficult to justify, Golisopod. At a glance, Golisopod appears like it should be higher on the list. Bug and Water is actually a pretty decent typing, both offensively and defensively. Its stats are also very solid. It has the highest base stat total on this list at 530. The distribution is not bad either. It has 125 base attack, 75 base HP, a massive 140 base defense, and a solid base 90 special defense. Its worst stat though is one of the most important. It has base 40 speed. Its move pool is absolutely great though. It basically gets every move it could realistically hope for. Stab priority with First Impression on Aqua Jet, coverage like Knockoff in close combat, Swords Dance to set up, and even Spikes if it wants to set hazards. So if it has all of this going on, why is it so low on this ranking? Well, its ability Emergency Exit hurts it a lot. When Golisopod gets to 50% health or lower, it's forced to switch out. Pair this with a terrible speed stat, and you have an awful situation where opposing Pokemon can simply outspeed Golisopod, hit it below 50% health, and not have to worry about being hit in return, since Golisopod is forced out. Emergency Exit doesn't wait until the end of the turn. Right when you get below that health threshold, you're out. It only activates once per game though, unless your Golisopod is healed above 50% health and then is damaged again, so you generally don't have to worry about being forced out more than once. Now, this ability can be used effectively. It's not strictly a bad ability like Slow Start or Defeatist. Sometimes the pivoting effect is nice, and if you expect your opponent is going to try to hit you to that damage range, you can hit them first with Aqua Jet, or First Impression if it's the first turn you're on the field. Emergency Exit also blocks the opponent from pivoting. If a Landorus U-turn brings your Golisopod to below 50% health, Golisopod will switch out, but Landorus won't, similar to how an eject button works. I did my best to take advantage of this ability with the set I used. I went with a heavy-duty boot set on a hazard stack team, using Golisopod as my spike setter, and using First Impression, Aqua Jet, and Knockoff as attacks. It performed alright. The emergency exit pivoting was nice a few times, and the powerful First Impression priority did get me out of some sticky situations. Still, if you want a hazard setting pivot, there are much better options than Golisopod. It has a unique and theoretically useful set of characteristics, but its poor speed and bad ability are what's keeping it so low on this list. Now for yet another Pokemon that you can't justify putting on a team, it's Clawitzer. This is my personal favorite Pokemon on this list. I love its design, and in particular, I think it has one of the best shiny forms in all of Pokemon. But I haven't let my personal feelings influence the ranking. Clawitzer has some major issues. Like Kingler, it's a mono water type. Not great, but fortunately, unlike Kingler, Clawitzer has an amazing ability, Mega Launcher, which boosts the power of pulse moves by 1.5 times. This essentially gives Clawitzer a stab boost on moves like Dark Pulse, Aura Sphere, Dragon Pulse, and most exciting of all, Terrain Pulse. Terrain Pulse is a 50 base power normal move, but when in terrain, it doubles in power and turns into the type that corresponds with the terrain. Add on the Mega Launcher boost and the 1.3 times terrain boost, this becomes insanely powerful. 195 base power after all the multipliers. Electric Terrain is my personal favorite to use this with, as ground types rarely want to switch into Clawitzer, but Grassy Terrain is solid as well. In Electric Terrain, Choice Specs Clawitzer is likely to one-hit KO a max-invested Assault Vest Alomomola with Terrain Pulse. One other nice pulse move it gets is Water Pulse, normally a 60 base power move and not worth using, but for Clawitzer, it's 90 base power, the same as Surf, but with a 20% chance to confuse. Clawitzer typically uses Choice Specs to power itself up further, taking advantage of its solid base 120 special attack and fantastic ability. Its incredible power is enough to inspire fear in everything other than Blissey and Chansey. The bad news is that this base 120 special attack is Clawitzer's only good stat. It has mediocre bulk with 71 base HP, 88 base defense, and 89 special defense. The real bad news is its base 59 speed. Slow and Frail is a combo that almost no Pokemon can succeed with, and Clawitzer is no exception. I used a Choice Spec set with Terrain Pulse, Water Pulse, Aura Sphere, and Dark Pulse, and although it was a threatening breaker, the poor speed and frailty of Clawitzer was very noticeable. It was tough to get entry opportunities to actually click an attack, with so many Pokemon outspeeding it and threatening massive damage or a kill. It's also rough that even strictly as a breaker, Clawitzer is massively outclassed. It can't get past Blissey or Chansey, so what you have is basically a Pokemon that's only good against bulky teams, but it can't really break Stall. You can technically wear down Blissey's switch-ins with Flip Turn and eventually KO it with 2 Aura Spheres, but then you also need Terrain to be on the field so water types like Toxapex or Alomomola don't just come in and shut you down. Ultimately, it's just not worth using. There are Pokemon that can do what it does, but way better. Now, we're into the top 5. Before we continue, if you're enjoying the video so far, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. It helps out a lot. Alright, at number 5 we have Barbaracle. Now, you might be saying, wait Pinkacross, Barbaracle isn't a crab. And yes, that's true, but it is based on a barnacle, and barnacles are crustaceans. It doesn't fit in with the rest of this list, I agree, but it is undeniably a crustacean, and thus I decided to include it. Barbaracle is a rock and water type, defensively quite poor, but offensively this typing is very solid. Its stats are also pretty good, a decent base 105 attack, solid bulk with base 72 HP, 115 defense, and 86 special defense. Its poor base 68 speed would seem like a major problem, one that would put Barbaracle in the same boat as all the other slow, defensively poor crustaceans we've looked at today, but that's not the case. That's because Barbaracle gets one of the best moves in all of Pokemon, Shell Smash. The ability to boost its attack and speed by 2 stages and use a White Herb to maintain solid defenses can make Barbaracle a terrifying sweeper to face. It's got a fantastic ability too, Tough Claws, which boosts the power of contact moves by 1.3 times. This is great for liquidation, but unfortunately Barbaracle really doesn't have the move pool to take advantage of this fantastic ability otherwise. Stone Edge and Earthquake don't make contact, and Barbaracle doesn't get close combat, so if you want to make use of Tough Claws beyond just liquidation, you'll have to run Cross Chop, a disappointing 100 base power, 80 accuracy fighting move. Ultimately, Barbaracle does one thing and one thing only, Shell Smash, and in this role, it is outclassed. I used a White Herb set with Shell Smash, Liquidation, Earthquake, and Cross Chop, and it was alright, but there are much better sweepers out there, even much better Shell Smash sweepers. It's not a bad Pokemon, and you can definitely get good results with it, even in the National Dex Overused tier, but you'd almost certainly get better results with something else. Now, as we move on to number 4, this is where our ranking changes a bit. All of the remaining Pokemon I could see having a legitimate niche in the National Dex Overused tier. These are Pokemon that there might actually be a justifiable reason to use. First up at number 4 is Klawf. At first glance, Klawf should not be this high. It's a mono rock type, which is poor defensively and offensively. The only Pokemon to ever overcome that typing is Garganacl, and in formats where Terra is allowed, Garganacl usually wants to change its type as quickly as possible. Its stats certainly aren't the reason Klawf is this high. It has a decent base 100 attack, a good base 115 defense, and poor or mediocre stats everywhere else, with base 70 HP, 55 special defense, and 75 defense. Its move pool also isn't much of a help. Klawf gets Stealth Rock, Knock Off, and Swords Dance, and that's about where the good news ends as far as its move pool goes. It gets Stone Edge for stab, of course, but they didn't even give this poor guy Earthquake. And if you were hoping for fighting stab, I hope you like Brick Break. It does get Crab Hammer and Temper Flare, but in general, Klawf is really lacking in powerful, useful coverage options. What really makes Klawf shine, what makes it number 4 on this list, are its abilities. First, I'll address its signature ability, Anger Shell. When Klawf gets to 50% health or below, it gets a +1 boost to speed, attack, and special attack, and its defenses are lowered by 1 stage. Basically, it gets a free mini Shell Smash. This is an amazing ability, and it would be broken on so many Pokemon. Unfortunately for the Crab fans, it's certainly not broken on Klawf. But when combined with Swords Dance, it can turn Klawf into a decently threatening sweeper. Still, +1 at base 75 speed isn't great. Not that fast, relatively easy to revenge kill, and with mediocre attack and poor coverage, this Klawf sweeping set isn't nearly good enough to get this far on the ranking. Like Barbaracle, there are just many stronger sweepers out there than Anger Shell Klawf. The ability that let Klawf get this far in the ranking is Regenerator. Perhaps the best ability in competitive Pokemon singles. Healing a third of its health when switching out can actually make Klawf a pretty annoying wall. Usually these sets run a Rocky Helmet and max defense, which is what I did here. Knock Off, Stealth Rock, and then some filler attacks like Stone Edge, Body Slam, or Brick Break are often used for the last 2 slots. With full EV investment, Klawf is quite bulky on the physical side, and it's the only Regenerator Pokemon with access to both Knock Off and Stealth Rock, making it rather unique. The problem, of course, is that now you have a defensive Pokemon that's a mono rock type, probably the worst defensive type in the game other than Ice. Most physical attackers can hit Klawf super effectively, severely limiting its usefulness as a wall. Still, I could imagine some teams wanting what Klawf does defensively, perhaps some very strange bulky balance or stall teams. A Klawf stall team actually did achieve a top 10 ranking in the Scarlet and Violet Overused ladder, and while this achievement doesn't prove viability, it indicates Klawf is at least possibly worth using in some rare cases, and that puts it above everything else so far on this list. Now into the top 3. First up, we have Crabominable. Crabominable is an ice and fighting type, defensively awful, but offensively amazing. And it has the power to back up that offensively potent type. With base 132 attack, it has the highest attack stat on this list. Its other stats are unfortunately much, much worse. Its base 97 HP isn't too bad, but then it has base 77 defense, base 67 special defense, and a brutal base 43 speed. You would think that despite Crabominable's power, the combination of a poor defensive type, poor bulk, and poor speed would make it not worth using. And you'd be right if it weren't for Trick Room. Trick Room turns Crabominable's terrible speed into a strength, and lets it utilize its power to its full potential. Crabominable doesn't just have a ton of attack, it also has the move pool to back it up. It gets Ice Punch, Drain Punch, Close Combat, Ice Hammer, Earthquake, Knockoff, Gunk Shot, Crab Hammer, and Thunder Punch. It sadly doesn't get Swords Dance, but it can boost up with Bulk Up or Power Up Punch. Iron Fist also boosts Crabominable's punching moves by 1.2 times, making it even stronger if you run Drain Punch and Ice Punch for stab coverage. And if you choose to go with Ice Hammer in close combat instead, you've got the Hyper Cutter ability to prevent Intimidate from weakening you. Crabominable's main issue is that it is often just outclassed. Trick Room isn't an amazing archetype in singles to begin with, and since you need to devote some of your team to Trick Room setters, you have very few slots available for full abusers that can't set Trick Room, maybe 3 at most. And Ursaluna is a must-have, so Crabominable is competing for the remaining 1 or 2 slots with Pokemon like Mega Mawile, Kingambit, Alolan Marowak, and Melmetal. With competition like that, it's difficult to justify Crabominable, but I do legitimately think it may be the right choice for some teams. It's not a top-tier Trick Room abuser by any means, but it is insanely powerful and can go crazy with the right support. Now, number 2. This one may surprise you. It's Crustle. Like Armaldo, Crustle has the disappointing Bug and Rock type. Its stats aren't anything amazing either. It has a solid base 105 attack, decent bulk with 75 base HP, a great 125 defense, and 70 base special defense. Its speed stat, like many other crustaceans on this list, is awful, base 45. So what makes Crustle special? What makes it succeed where Armaldo failed? First of all, Crustle gets Shell Smash. I explained how game-changing this was for Barbaracle, and it helps Crustle out a lot as well. The next big deal is that Crustle gets Rock Wrecker, a 150 base power physical rock move that demands a recharge the following turn, basically a physical rock-type Hyper Beam. This recharge may make it seem not worth using at first, but the key is that you can equip Crustle with a Rockium Z. This is a 200 base power rock-type Z-move. After a Shell Smash, it's killing almost everything. Shell Smash Crustle isn't supposed to sweep, it's supposed to break. And a +2, 200 base power Stab Z-move certainly does that. Its poor speed is not ideal, but Crustle has 2 great abilities to help out. Weak Armor gives Crustle a +2 speed boost in exchange for -1 defense when it gets hit by a physical attack, a deal Crustle often wants to take since it has great physical bulk. You can also run Sturdy to ensure you survive at least 1 hit. This is a particularly great choice on lead Shell Smash Crustle. That's the set I went with. Shell Smash, Rock Wrecker, Earthquake, and Stealth Rock with Sturdy, max EVs, and attack and speed. This Crustle set is surprisingly consistent. It beats opposing leads like Landorus, Gliscor, and Mega Diancie, and it's often able to set up hazards and get a kill. In some great cases, you're able to use Stealth Rock, Shell Smash, destroy something with a Z-Rock Wrecker, and then get another kill with a regular Rock Wrecker. And if Crustle doesn't want to lead, you can wait for a few turns for a better entry opportunity and Shell Smash on a physical attacker that can't threaten significant damage. Crustle definitely isn't a top-tier lead, but I do believe it has a legitimate niche thanks to the deadly combination of Shell Smash plus Rock Wrecker. Now, Crustle being so high on this list is dependent upon Z-moves, a mechanic that's likely not returning. So if Crustle didn't have Z-moves, where would it be? I'd say I'd put it as better than Klotzer, but worse than Barbaracle. Crustle gets both Stealth Rock and Spikes, as well as other useful moves like Knockoff and Counter, so I could see it being used effectively as a hazard lead. Probably not good enough to be worth using, but it would perform alright. Alright, now only 1 crustacean remains, but before I say the number 1 crustacean, let's go over some honorable mentions. The first is Kabutops. This Pokemon seems crab-like, but it is not a crustacean. It's a sea scorpion. Others might point out how strongly Kabutops resembles modern-day horseshoe crabs, which I agree, it does bear a strong resemblance. However, horseshoe crabs are not crabs at all, or crustaceans. They're more closely related to spiders than crabs. If Kabutops was on this list, I would probably place it near the top. Better than Crustle, I'd say, but not better than my number 1 pick. Having Swift Swim and Rapid Spin is a nice combo. It's basically a better version of Armaldo. The second honorable mention is Gliscor. It does get the move Crabhammer, but Gliscor is undeniably a scorpion, and scorpions are not crustaceans. If Gliscor was on this list, it would obviously be number 1. It's Gliscor. Now, with that out of the way, it's time for number 1. You probably saw this one coming. It's Crawdaunt. Crawdaunt has a fantastic stab combo of Water and Dark. Very few Pokemon can comfortably switch into these types. Its stats seem pretty terrible at first. It has a solid base 120 attack, but every other stat is bad. It has horrible bulk with base 63 HP, base 85 defense, and base 55 special defense. And its speed is also terrible, base 55. Slow and Frail, as I said, is a combo that almost no Pokemon can overcome. The key word here being almost. Crawdaunt has several strengths that make it an exception. First, it has the amazing ability Adaptability, giving it a stab boost of 2 times instead of the usual 1.5 times. Its move pool also gives it the exact tools it needs to take advantage of this. It gets Knockoff for a strong Dark Stab, Crabhammer for a strong Water Stab, Aqua Jet for stab priority, and Swords Dance to boost its power to ridiculous levels. Its combination of poor bulk and speed is a struggle for sure, but it has 2 main ways of getting around this. The first is Rain. A +2 Life Orb Crawdaunt, Aqua Jet, and Rain is a one-hit KO on so many Pokemon that the speed sometimes doesn't even feel like an issue. The second, much like for Crabominable, is Trick Room. Under Trick Room, Crawdaunt's poor speed is an advantage. Trick Room teams also appreciate the powerful Aqua Jet it offers, bringing some artificial speed to a very slow archetype. Sadly, for all the crab and lobster fans out there, Crawdaunt still isn't amazing. It only gets 0.5% of usage in the National Dex overused tier, and even less as you filter for higher elo. Now, that usage is way more than anything else on this list, but still not a lot. In most cases, on both Rain and Trick Room teams, there are better options than Crawdaunt. But for some teams that want strong water priority, Crawdaunt is the answer they need, and it undeniably still has a place in the tier, however rare it is. Well, that's my ranking of all crustacean Pokemon. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. Let me know in the comments what your favorite crustacean Pokemon is. As I said, mine is definitely Klotzer. Honestly, I'd say it's top 10 Pokemon designs. Well, have a good one, and I'll see you next time.